right, take it away.
All right, it is now 7:06 p.m. This is the 12th of January 2022 meeting of the Trail, Sidewalks, and Bikeways Committee to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance. This committee needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It is a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. First, because each member of the committee is participating in the meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each committee member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. I'm the representative at large and the chair. I am Ken Comer calling from my home in Springfield District. Mr. Cosgrove. David, can you unmute him?
Yeah, this is Bob. I'm calling from my home in Hickory Farms in Braddock District.
Thanks, heard you, Bob. Hunter Mill, Mr. Rowe.
Hi, this is Alex Rowe calling from my home in Hunter Mill.
Thanks, heard you. Mount Vernon District, Mr. Klein.
Yeah, this is Jim Klein calling from my home in Holland Hills in Mount Vernon District.
Got that, Jim. Drainsville District, Mr. Smith.
This is Wade Smith calling from my home in McLean in the Drainsville district.
Thank you, Jim. Nobody from the Providence District. I'll pause for a moment in case somebody is dialed in. Nothing heard. Mason District, Mr. Albright.
He emailed me he's having trouble logging in, so hopefully he can get in a bit.
Okay, hopefully we can get him later. Nothing heard on Mr. Albright. Springfield District, Mr. Liebert. No response. Lee District, welcoming Ms. Partland.
This is Erin Partland calling from my home in Kingstown in Lee District.
Thank you, heard you. Sully District, Ms. Zampa. No response yet. Clifton Horse Society, Ms. McDaniel.
Katie McDaniel calling from my home in Oak Hill.
Thanks, Katie. Fab, Mr. Newman.
Hey everybody, this is Sean Newman from Fab calling from Fairfax County.
Thanks, got you, Sean. Fairfax Disability Services Board is vacant, if that's correct, or if it is, there's somebody here. Okay, nothing heard. Fairfax County Federation of Citizens Association, Mr. Tipton.
Hi, this is Mark Tipton calling from my work in Rockville, Maryland.
Thanks, Mark. Got that. Fairfax County Park Authority, Ms. Anetta.
Ken, she said she's going to be late. She's briefing the Park Authority Board as we speak. And we'll check
that's right. I did see that email. So no response from Beth. Northern Virginia Builders Industry Association, Ms. Portilla. No response. Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, Mr. Depew. Welcoming Mr. Depew. Are you here? No response. Washington Area Bicyclists Association, Mr. Albers. And no response. Anybody has regained connectivity since I started the list? Okay, I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the committee. It is our practice to approve this and all subsequent motions by acclamation, so I will ask now if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what types of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to the meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this committee to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures which require physical assembly of this committee and the physical presence of the public cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this committee may conduct this meeting electronically through the Cisco WebEx video conferencing platform. For now, this format will provide a dedicated phone line. The public may access the meeting by going to fairfax.webex.com and by entering event number 2339-954-6807 and password trails2022, or by calling 844-621-3956 and using the same access code 2339-954-6807. It is so moved. I will ask again if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, that motion carries. Finally, it is next required to establish that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda address the emergency itself, are necessary for the continuity in Fairfax County government, and or are statutorily required or necessary for the continued operations in the discharge of this committee's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved. I will again ask if there are any objections or nay votes. Hearing none, the motion carries. We can now move to the agenda.
Ken, this is Jim Klein. It's my privilege to take the notes tonight.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. So before we go into the agenda, I'd like, first of all, I'm going to ask for staff and members of the public, but first the staff to let us know who's here from the staff.
And it's David Loss from FCDOT.
And Chris Wells, Active Transportation Program Manager, Fairfax County Department of Transportation.
And that's it, right, guys? Okay, next I'd like to find out if there are any members of the public, people whose name, or anybody whose name I have not called tonight. Could you identify yourself? No response. So I think the first step on the agenda is to review and approve the prior virtual meeting minutes. And I think I saw something in my inbox, so I believe Beth has sent us minutes. Is that correct?
Hey, Ken, I didn't get any minutes, but Beth said she was gonna talk about that when she checks in with us.
Okay, so let's set that aside until we hear from our secretary. So
Ken, this is
the-
Mark.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I was taking the minutes last month and they're not quite done yet, so I'm afraid I don't have them available yet.
Okay, good. We won't be, that doesn't force me to go look in my inbox for something that I should have paid attention to, but I didn't. So thanks, Mark. I appreciate you doing it and appreciate having it by next month. That'd be good.
Very good.
Anybody else want to fess up that the minutes that were supposed to be here wasn't? Okay, so I think that's probably most of what Beth is going to tell us, is that there are delays in getting these minutes approved. We have no presentations scheduled. We have a 15-minute discussion for active Fairfax transportation plan update and I-66 off-corridor trails. So who is going to lead that discussion?
I guess that would be me. And then, of course, we can talk about anything else the committee is interested in talking about. Active Fairfax Transportation Plan. The two main components of that is the original effort, which is comprehensive plan update, and I'll summarize a little bit since we have a new member. The comprehensive plan update, which is essentially updating and combining countywide trails plan and the bicycle master plan into a new policy document and policy map for not only bicycle facilities, which essentially the trails plan are, but also pedestrian facilities. A spinoff from that is the Safe Streets for All plan. The board, the new board in, I guess, after they were elected in early 2020, in the first board meeting of the new board, put forth a board matter asking staff, asking the county to do more for pedestrian safety in response to the trend of fatalities, which has trended back up after 20 years where it actually had trended down. And part of that board matter was, at least the spirit, I would say the spirit of that board matter was, what can we do quicker? What can we do with low-hanging fruit, so to speak? How can we take advantage of technology? So the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan, which was going to always include policy elements about safety, which really don't exist in today's comprehensive plan. Today's comprehensive plan talks a lot about multimodal, complete streets, that type of stuff. The safety elements has really just been what staff does as business as usual on behalf of the county, but it hadn't really been backed up with comprehensive plan or board of supervisors endorsement, guidance, so on and so forth, at least not at the level of the comprehensive plan. So we were always intending to include a safety element as part of the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan. But as we started to take into account the board's interest in the subject and in accelerating the subject, the comprehensive plan effort for the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan is a multi-year effort. And we recognize that the board did not probably want to wait multiple years for us to identify safety elements that could be implemented in the short term. So we broke out what we call the Safe Streets for All plan, which is essentially similar to other Vision Zero plans or towards zero deaths plans. It is a business plan for the county to follow for achieving reduction or elimination of pedestrian fatalities, pedestrian and bicycle fatalities, and even vehicle fatalities. So the status is complicated because we now have two moving parts, and we want to make sure we create a firewall, in a sense, between these two moving parts, because we expect the board is going to want us to accelerate the safety element and endorse the safety element and expect action on some of these safety elements while we are still working on the comprehensive plan changes to the that will be ultimately approved as the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan. So again, to review a little bit for the new member, we've been working on phase one of what we call the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan for, I guess I should know this, at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And that's been the outreach to the community, the existing conditions analysis, but more of a policy framework, existing conditions analysis, getting input from the public as to what their issues are, what the barriers are, and my agenda was just wigging out, so hopefully you guys can still hear me. If you have any trouble hearing me, tell me and I'll turn off my camera. And we've essentially wrapped up phase 1. The board did provide funding at carryover for us to continue for phase 2. Phase 2 will be taking that input from the community about what the challenges are, what the barriers are, and then moving forward with updating the maps and solidifying the policies, and ultimately then getting into that comprehensive plan change process, which is an official county process for the comprehensive plan. So we have not executed the task order yet for phase 2. We've been negotiating with the consultant some of the details. The one detail that that was sort of giving us pause at the staff level was the activity centers, such as Merrifield, Annandale, the Route 1 Embark areas. Those have a higher level of planning than the general countywide planning, and some of those have cross sections for streets and things like that, a greater level of detail than a countywide plan typically has. And so we did just have a meeting with Department of Planning and Development on how to structure the task order for the phase 2 contract for the consultant. Did we really need the consultant to get into all 35 of these activity centers and mess with the cross sections that exist, or do we have more work to do just to get to that point? And we ultimately decided that we have more work to do just to get to that point, and that ultimately solving the discrepancies between the differences between previously approved comprehensive plan languages in the activity centers and the new bicycle best practices that are going to be incorporated into the active Fairfax plan, that'll ultimately fall on staff anyway. And so we don't feel we need to spend a lot of consultant resources, consultant funding on that. And that for now, we're just going to put a placeholder in the phase 2 contract that there will be something that the consultant needs to do in relation to that, but that we're really not sure ultimately what the best approach is, so we can't exactly put that into a contract right now. And again, ultimately identifying where there's differences is the role of the consultant and is the role of the process, the active Fairfax transportation plan process. But then how those updates are incorporated into the county's comprehensive plan are going to be different, because the 35 activity centers are all different. We're all done over decades of different public processes. So because it's sort of a inside baseball issue there for us, but because we did come up with this resolution, we think we're ready to go ahead and finalize the task order for phase 2 and go ahead and get that executed here literally within the next few weeks. So phase 2 is anticipated to be essentially an 18-month process or so. Probably the meat of that process is a 12-month process, and then again, that'll feed into county processes ultimately to update the comprehensive plan. And phase 2 again will be updating the maps, combining the maps, furthering the policies, and furthering the community input that we've already began with. So that's phase 2. That's where phase 2 is. The Safe Streets for All plan we took to the Board Transportation Committee in the fall of last year. We are planning to return to the Board Transportation Committee with that in a couple of weeks, February 1st or so, whenever the first week of February's Board Transportation Committee is. That'll be reporting back to the board on the public input we received at the end of 2021 on the Safe Streets for All plan. That it essentially, the public input was essentially positive and supportive and did not result in any changes whatsoever. So it's essentially the same Safe Streets for All plan that we originally took to the board in the fall. What we've been tasked with looking at now is prioritizing some of those elements. If you're familiar with the plan, there's about 60 bullet points of different business plans that the county could pursue, some huge, grandiose ones, some small, low-hanging fruit ones. And so where our approach to reporting back to the board is going to be to sort of break those into two buckets. Bucket number one is stuff that can be implemented now with no budget implications and with existing staff. Bucket number two would be stuff that are priorities that takes a staff position and budgetary support from the board. And we would be looking towards not this fiscal year's budget, because this fiscal year's budget is already sort of been worked on and is about to be made public, and we'll go through the public process. The bucket number two of Safe Streets for All that would require significant budget support we would be targeting next year's budget cycle, which would be fiscal 2024. So after we would take that to the board Transportation Committee, which again is a committee of the whole board, we'd be looking to take them get their input on what we're talking about, proposing, and then ultimately that needs to go back to the Board of Supervisors, the actual Board of Supervisors, for endorsement, which we anticipate in the spring. So those are the major status updates for both the Safe Streets for All and the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan. The one other piece of work that is ongoing that is wrapping up from phase one is the need and demand analysis map. If you recall, we presented to this committee, and of course we've presented to the Board of Supervisors, the work that the consultant has done analyzing needs areas, and by needs we're defining that as populations or socioeconomic definitions that make folks more in need of active transportation, essentially that they do not or cannot own or drive a car, and so they have to walk, bike, and use transit to have transportation mobility. And then we match that with a demand analysis, which is essentially land use driven, activity centers, generators such as schools, parks, etc., and then putting those together. Our work to date came up with some sort of strange outputs for the needs analysis based on traditional sociodemographic metrics that we were looking at, basically the same stuff that our one Fairfax equity policy is looking at. We came up with areas like Great Falls outside of the Beltway by Madeira School, some areas of Clifton, and the Mason Neck Peninsula as showing up as areas of needs. And of course, we would not think that those are needy areas, compared to Route 1 or Como or places where we know we have socioeconomic needs. So we're wrapping up. We have a little bit of money left at the end of phase one for the consultant, And we're digging a little deeper into that needs analysis, into the inputs that generated that needs output. We've come up with 3 different scenarios using, changing the weightings and changing some of those socioeconomic inputs. We came up with 3 different scenarios now to sort of ground truth test some new outputs to see if we get a better picture. And all 3 of these scenarios do produce a better output. And so we're the broader group of staff and citizens that are involved in that are taking a look at some of those outputs to determine ultimately which one of those needs outputs most accurately reflects what we know in the county. It's detailed down to the sub census tract area, whereas traditionally we've looked at census tracts for things like this, and our One Fairfax policy uses a census tract based map. But unfortunately, the way the census tracts are drawn, many of them are large and strangely shaped. And so they actually encompass a diversity of land uses and a diversity of socioeconomic conditions, and therefore do not do a good job of pinpointing areas of need. So our work is much more detailed, down to multiple little sub-hexagons of the census tracts. And so the One Fairfax staff is completely on board with what we're doing, completely excited to actually use the output that we've come up with. And then part of our exercise also is sort of overlaying other things that we know, such as our bus stops with high ridership, or our bus systems Title VI equity information and things like that. So that's the one activity out of phase 1 that we're still wrapping up, and all of that will feed into the work that we're doing in phase 2. So essentially the equity and the needs it's really just trying to get us to a traditional benefit cost analysis, and it defines the benefit side of that benefit cost analysis. We have so much better tools today, geographic based tools, to consider how one would define the areas that would benefit most from investments in active transportation. And so essentially everything I was just talking about is again trying to give us input and the best data-driven education towards a benefit cost analysis for the future. So with that sort of complicated and status update, I will stop and take questions. No questions? Everyone still hears me?
Still hear you, Chris.
Okay,
We can
good.
move on.
I still have 3 bars on my Wi-Fi. Okay, so if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to the I-66 off-corridor trails. There's not a lot to update. We continue to work on it. Just to review, the priorities for the county work east to west. The 66 project itself is essentially building the trail along major segments of the 66 project, from Gallows Road to Nutley, then from Blake through the Route 50 interchange, and then again from West Stocks out to the 28 interchange. In between those areas, there's a couple places that go off corridor, such as at the Vienna Metro between Nutley and Blake, at Fairfax Corner between the Route 50 interchange and West Stocks, and then ultimately west of Centerville. So the most advanced segment is the Vienna segment. Again, where our prioritization for both funding and staff effort has been east to west. We've had a public meeting, our second public meeting recently, VDOT public meeting, VDOT on Vienna. VDOT is our contractor, so to speak, where along Vienna, along Virginia Center Boulevard and Country Creek Drive Boulevard, whatever it's called, we're proposing a cycle track, a parallel bicycle facility to a parallel sidewalk facility for pedestrians. And then along Sutton, there's not enough room for both, so we're proposing a shared use trail along Sutton to take us out to Blake. So that conceptual design has been fairly solidified for months at this point. We have accomplished all the engineering details that we needed to complete to still have a proof of concept, so to speak, for that. The interchange justification report that we have to do because we're modifying the secret off ramp there that goes off the 66 frontage lanes up to Country Creek. Instead of that being a free flow right slip ramp, we're going to turn that into a T intersection and move the traffic signal to align with the townhouses across the street and create a four-way traffic signal, but most importantly for pedestrians and bicycle, eliminate that high-speed free flow right movement. That's all been approved. The details of how we handle the metro garage entrances, the traffic signals, all those pieces of the puzzle have fallen into place. Additionally, we're doing an interim facility because due to the complexity of this project and the time it took to get it funded and worked on, the off-corridor portion of Vienna will not be completed when the I-66 trail opens up, which is currently theoretically scheduled for the end of 2022. So we came up with a plan to build an interim facility. Essentially, if you're familiar with the project, excuse me, the ultimate facility is taking the right lane away from Virginia Center and Country Creek. Those roads are excessively wide and don't need that capacity. So the ultimate facility was going to build into that right lane anyway. So the interim facility is going to be an interim on-road facility separated with either flexi posts or concrete barriers or a combination of both, and allow the continuity of the I-66 trail through that Vienna area when the 66 trail on the 66 project opens up. On Sutton, there's not enough room to build a lot of interim facilities. The wide part of Sutton, leaving the four-way stop, there is excessive width there, so we will be able to provide buffered bike lanes through there. But as it narrows down to get to Blake, unfortunately, all there will be sharrows in each direction. So a confident cyclist could stay on Sutton and benefit from the sharrows. A family with kids would be better off just to use the sidewalk. What we've been working on as staff is the funding. Essentially, we're confident that we have the ultimate project fully funded, although we're still applying for commuter connections funding, which is the I-66 toll funding inside the Beltway that's available for jurisdictions to apply for. If we get that funding, then that'll offset other funding, but we're, essentially the ultimate Vienna section is fully funded one way or the other. The interim facility, we still have to finalize the funding for that. That's another, and I'm sorry, the ultimate's $9 million, 9 or 10 million, I think just 9. The interim is $1 million. That funding still needs to be finalized, and the agreement executed so that we can build it this year. So that still needs to fall into place, but we're all aware of the need to do that. We actually have our monthly meeting on that tomorrow, so we'll be discussing that. So that's Vienna. Random Hills Post Forest, along Random Hills, the facility essentially takes advantage of the existing shared use path or trail along Random Hills. But when it gets to the Monument Drive Bridge and goes behind the government center buildings, there's just a sidewalk. And then on Post Forest, we put that road on a road diet a few years ago, and that was a 4-lane undivided road, and it's now a 2-lane road with bike lanes. So the design elements for that section involves converting the sidewalk at the back of the government center buildings into a trail, an asphalt trail, and then along Post Forest, actually again narrowing the road, similar to what we're doing at Vienna, essentially taking away those on-road bike lanes and using that space to create a shared use path. That was initially funded with about $4 million of some leftover VDOT money. And we are still finalizing the agreement to add the additional county money that's needed for that. That also has a price tag of $7 million, something like that. So those are both moving ahead, as well as can be expected. The interim for Post Forest and Random Hills is essentially what we have there today. The one other element associated with those is wayfinding signs. So the I-66 project never committed to doing any sort of wayfinding signs, although it's possible some simple signage will be part of that project. But we as the county have committed to funding wayfinding signs for 2 reasons. As we discussed, the off-corridor pieces leave the corridor, so you have to know where you're going. You have to know to turn left if you're coming down Post Forest and you need to turn onto Random Hills. But also, of course, wayfinding directs trail users to nearby amenities or facilities, but as or even more importantly, directs the surrounding community to know that there is this regional trail running adjacent to their neighborhood. So the county is committed to an engineering design effort to design the entire wayfinding signage that's needed for the corridor. However, the implementation of the signs will probably be done as funding is available and prioritized probably first, making sure that no one gets lost by handling that left, right, left kind of stuff, and then ultimately building out the entire wayfinding network. So that's associated with that. And then the last portion that I didn't mention, it's not on the agenda, is the stuff west of Centerville. We have engaged again VDOT to the portion that, I'm sorry, just to back up real quick. There's also a Park Authority portion coming out of the Route 50 interchange to get us out to Random Hills. So the Park Authority is designing and building that portion for us. The section along Random Hills and Post Forest, VDOT is doing that as our contractor. Then last but not least at this point, west of Centerville, there's actually a decent amount of trail infrastructure. The 66 project takes the trail through the 28 interchange, both a north destination to Braddock Road, Walney, and a south destination to along 28 and up to US 29 at the Newgate Shopping Center. But as you head west along 29, there is a lot of trail, but there's a couple of missing gaps. So immediately adjacent to Newgate at Trinity Center, there's the gas station doesn't have anything. And then there's sidewalk at Trinity Center. So that's going to be a shared use path, and then out at the Stone Road Park and Ride, there's an existing sidewalk that will also be updated to a trail. So those are sections that we've had VDOT do the conceptual designs for, and we are working towards the funding agreement for those also. So we certainly anticipate and are planning on fully funding those sections also. They're a couple $1 million each, maybe $2, $3, $4 million each. But then at the moment, that is the furthest west that we are planning this facility, the intersection of 29 and Stone Road. Ultimately, we would like to go down the Cub Run Stream Valley out to Compton Road through Bull Run Regional Park, and then ultimately have our neighbors in Prince William County join us in crossing and connecting through Prince William County. But there is no funding available in the near term or short term for anything further west at this point. So at the moment, from a staff effort and funding point of view, all we can realistically say is we're going as far as the 29 and Stone Road intersection. So that's what I have on those two.
Thanks, Chris. Any further question on that?
I have a question for Chris. This is Mark. I wanted to ask about the I-66 tunnels for the trail. As you know, there's a couple tunnels planned for Nutley Street and at several of the interchanges up I-66. And I was concerned that the trails need to be safe, clean, and dry. And I was wondering if there will be any agreements for cleaning and policing of those tunnels.
Sure, that's a great point. There's both underpasses and overpasses. In fact, as you drive the 66 corridor, you can see some of our pedestrian bridges up in the air. The underpasses are so first of all, it's a huge accomplishment for us to have separate grade facilities. As you all know, historically, we've typically crossed freeway interchanges with at-grade crosswalks, which was the best practices, and for some locations is still perfectly safe and appropriate. But as the speeds and the volumes of ramps get higher, then it's better to have separate grade facilities. And so we were able to, through the negotiations process with VDOT and the consortium, get them to design almost all of the facility with separate grade crossings. And those aren't cheap, and that was a major victory. The underpasses are certainly designed with lighting and with drainage. I'm not aware of a perpetual maintenance agreement that's any different from standard operating procedures. And what makes this unique in this case is the public-private partnership aspect of this project, in that the business that is going to own and operate the toll lanes has a responsibility for those. And I honestly don't know. I assume the non-toll lanes still are VDOT's, and I honestly do not know. I would assume, but do not know for sure, that the trail would also become VDOT's asset for maintenance. And so that would include trash, debris removal, vandalism cleanup, so on and so forth. So I'm positive there's no enhanced level of services planned, such as safety patrols or anything like that. That in all of our discussions, it has been assumed that that would fall on the Fairfax County Police. We did, though, design access to the trail, the access points to the trail, with that need in mind, so that an ambulance or a police car would have a way to get onto the trail. Much of the trail actually functions also as a maintenance access for the interstate itself. There's lighting, and where there's metro, there's the vaults for the electricity for metro and everything. So the trail was already designed to allow maintenance vehicles to access when necessary, and it was a natural extension to include that for emergency vehicles. But I'm not aware of any enhanced level of service that's been discussed or even certainly promised. And I would assume, my assumption would be, but I haven't been asked or answered this question before, that the trail falls to VDOT to maintain. And so, as we know, VDOT doesn't get the funding they need to do the high level of service of maintenance that many would expect. And so that's something that we will need to stay on top of and potentially push or help with.
That sounds good, Chris. We might have to have a discussion with the police at some point, but I'm all for the tunnels and all the connections. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. David, I'm not good at reading the chat, but I see some things in the chat. Are there any questions in the chat for me on these presentations?
No, not specific to this, I don't think.
Okay, so with that, I guess that's the two areas of project-related information the committee was interested in an update on. I'm not sure staff has much to say about vacant committee seats. That might be a discussion that the committee wants to have. The one thing I can say about upcoming presentations, we do have a request from the Parking Reimagined. Is that the right term, David? Parking Reimagined.
I think that's what they call it. It's Land Development Services.
For next month.
Yeah.
They've asked to come to the committee next month to make a presentation on the update to all of the parking ordinances, and which is going to include bicycle parking, which is actually a positive step forward because, as you may be aware, bicycle parking right now is not a requirement. It is a guideline. And I believe this effort, but we'll find out next month. We can ask him, is intended to codify that so that bicycle parking becomes a requirement as part of our overall parking requirements. And so they've asked to come next month to make a presentation.
And I just put in the chat, they have like a web page about it. So I haven't checked it out in much detail myself, but that'll give a nice overview of what it is that they're planning to present.
Okay. Before we get to the active and unresolved issues, Karen had I think, quite interesting meeting with, if I understand it correctly, with counterparts in Prince William County. So because her district borders there. Karen, would you be ready to present your screen now, or present the things that you sent to David now?
Yes, sure. Thanks. I just apologize for being late. I put in the chat just Charlie Grimes, I had a meeting last week with Charlie Grimes and Eileen Sheridan from Prince William County and with Michael Coyle, which Supervisor Smith's staff, Karen Jones and Bill Needinghouse. It was about trail connectivity between Prince William and Fairfax County. And it's the three key kind of messages that came out of that were, which mainly from Charlie, saying that from Prince William County perspective, they really missed out with 66 and envied Fairfax for the trails from VDOT, because when VDOT came and asked them what were their plans for trails along 66 or near 66, or what kind of plans did they have, they said they didn't have any. And so they missed out on funding and getting any part of VDOT help and having to trail on I-66 like Fairfax got. And Charlie said that was kind of a wake up call for the advocates in Prince William County for trails, that they really needed a plan. Secondly, he said that Prince William County, the government is much more keen. He thinks a message from Fairfax officials or Fairfax organizations would be much more effective than the kinds of things they've been trying to do to get their attention, to pay attention to trails. So there was kind of a plea for organizations or government leaders in Fairfax to meet with Prince William government to talk about connectivity of trails. We had several maps up. There's one in the chat that where they could potentially be, but they didn't know specifically where they should be. But the idea that Fairfax is really the leader, and they look, according to him and according to what they said in the meeting, the leader in this area and sets the path for Prince William would follow. The other thing they said was there hasn't been, nobody in that meeting could remember that there'd been any coordination between government agencies in Prince William and Fairfax on any trail connectivity in the past. What the key part is, the mobility chapter for the 2040 comprehensive plan that Prince William is working on. And they feel like they need to have some, what they called aspirational mapping of trails in that plan. The final is, he said the deadline would be June of this year. 2022 is due, but various drafts are going on now, and he wanted some feedback and input into that plan as soon as possible, like this month. So that the as I put in the chat from Charlie, that's just a cut and paste from Charlie Grimes. He says the planning time frame is over the next 20 years, so they really want to think long term and not necessarily what's possible in the next couple years, but what they'd like to see in the next 20 years. And there's a link to some of the places that they could to link those trails up, but he also said that the counterpart for our TSB committee in Prince William is the Trails and Blueways Council in Prince William County. So if I think Jim Klein, and I'm not sure who the other rep is that borders Prince William County, but Sully and Mount Vernon, the three of them that border Prince William could possibly talk to some of the members or meet with some of the members on the Trails and Blueways Council and see if we could do something aside from the main thing was that Maggie Godbold was going to try to make sure that there was going to be a meeting between maybe some boards of supervisors, reps, and Prince William in the next month or two.
Hey Karen, this is Dave. Just a heads up. I don't know if you were planning to share something on your screen or not, but I did give you the presenter privileges if you wanted to do that. If you didn't have anything, no big deal. Just let me know.
Oh, I was thinking maybe I could, I thought that since I didn't send you anything in far enough in advance that I needed to send you anything that I was going to share on my screen. Is that not true?
Yeah, I think it's fine if you just want to share it now.
I thought maybe the next meeting I could put more of a presentation with updates and show the maps.
Sure,
Uh,
whatever works for you. I was just letting you know that you had the presenter ball. But yeah, no, if you want to put something together for next time, we might have a crowd in February, but that should work.
Oh,
I
okay.
think the FOIA rules allow us to. We've gotten some mixed guidance on that issue. Some say that you should stuff should be posted before the meeting, but apparently that's not the legal interpretation of FOIA. So we're allowed to present stuff at the meeting that wasn't posted previously. What we have to do is post stuff afterwards. So anything that we do present at a meeting, we need to legally make available after the meeting, similar to the minutes or whatever. But again, like David said, if you're ready for next month, that's fine. But just so that everyone knows, we are allowed to bring things to the meeting and discuss them.
Okay. I don't know. Can you, I tried to share this map that was presented at the meeting, but I'm not sure if it's working.
Working.
Yes, I can see it.
You can see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
Well-
little bit small though. Can you zoom in?
You go to like slideshow or something and make it bigger.
I don't think she's in PowerPoint.
Oh, well,
This
yeah.
is a PDF.
Well,
Aaron, hit Control L. Oh, you're in. Hit F11.
you say you can see it, but it's small?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's
But
in my,
you were making it bigger. Hitting the plus is probably the best thing to do. Just hit the plus a couple more times.
oh,
Not that plus.
that's the wrong one.
Yep, it's the wrong one.
So one comment, since when Kieran's working on that, the Park Authority actually just hired a gentleman named Robert Boyd, who I believe worked for Prince William County and worked on their trails and blueways aspirational plans. So Park Authority has somebody who's intimately familiar with this. So we shall have him working with us, I believe, on some of the active Fairfax review of trails and stuff like that. So he will certainly be on the lookout for things that he knows that they worked on and why they didn't make connections. So we stole him, I believe, from Prince William County. So.
Well, I assume he'll be working with Maggie Godbold.
Yeah, he'll be working with me in the planning and development division of the Park Authority. So as we get through active Fairfax, we can also make sure that we look. He has like insider baseball knowledge of what they approved and didn't approve for their plan. So.
Okay, well, this map just shows, you could, there are mainly 3 connections in the red, which would be on 66 and the next screen. This is what they showed at the meeting, but this version of it, I think it might be better if I get this at the next meeting, because I'm not sure why this version of it, the labels come out at the bottom instead of where they belong, but the Poplar Ford is up here. Can you see that? Can you see my cursor?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
can see your cursor.
That's supposed to have the label Poplar Ford. That's what we talked a lot about in the meeting. And then this one is the Manassas Battlefield. It's on Lee Highway. I know that. It's on
Yeah.
Lee Highway at the border.
Yeah, that's the
right here.
battlefield.
That's the battlefield, right? Right.
Yep.
And here are the 66 and Bull Run connections. And then this is the Sudley Ford. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. These are the ones they talked about more than any of the others. And just that the red was really where they just wanted to have it on this plan that they're working on. There's Poplar Ford and the battlefield and this, yeah. They have these, the yellow ones they said are, this was the one that Bill and Karen presented and said these are the Fairfax that are already, the Sudley Loop and so forth, that are already planned. And that they could connect these up with this one I think is the Poplar Ford. So I'm not sure that what we can do to send a letter or contact the supervisors just to be looking for that. I think Maggie was coordinating. They are gonna try to get a meeting with Jim McKay. Mike Coyle talked about it being with Kathy Smith, and then there was a discussion that it's really bigger than Sully because it's the three. It's more county-wide an issue. So that they wanted the chairman to be involved in meeting with Prince William County about it.
Yeah, excuse me, this is Jim. I know in Mount Vernon, we have been working or tried to work with them on the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail, which has an existing bridge at the town of Occoquan that already connects. And so the approaches to that bridge is what's critical, where there's a piece of Fairfax water property kind of in the way of that. So that's been an ongoing issue since I've been on this committee, and it will continue. So I know that's one important area of coordination. That's all I got.
Okay.
I'd be happy to meet with Maggie or whoever.
Okay, and when they mentioned you in the meeting, you came up several times as someone who has been coordinating more with in Mount Vernon than anyone else in Fairfax, than Sully has been. I'm not sure what's the other district that borders Prince William.
Springfield.
Springfield.
Can I, Karen, can I ask a quick question? Sean from Fab. I just wanted to find out what is the main goal with talking to the supervisors from Fairfax? Just
Are you really quiet? Could you speak up, or if you got a microphone or something, move it closer?
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can I say that the answer in the meeting was that Prince William really thought that Fairfax knew how to do this a lot better than they did because of their experience with 66 and because of the trails that we have. So Charlie said that if they could, that the Prince William, is it the supervisors in Prince William? They would just pay a lot more attention if they could hear it from the government officials in Fairfax County, and it would get this moving and on the trails in a real way.
So it sounds like you're saying the goal is to get Fairfax County leadership like Jim McKay and the supervisors that border to have a conversation with the Prince William County leadership to show them, give them some ideas. And
That was
possibly
the greater goal of the meeting that we had last week. My part in that was to bring it to this committee and bring attention to it, and just possibly that we could help flesh out more, possibly with Bill and Karen, where the connection should be in the proposed plan. Perhaps working with the Blue Ways Committee.
Can I ask a related question? How much is staff working with Prince William County staff? That was directed at David or Chris.
Or Beth. Oh.
Yeah, Beth.
Yeah, thank you. I was letting the committee discuss the subject, and I figured at some point you want to hear my perspective. Everything Karen said that Prince William said is actually a very accurate and excellent depiction of the lack of communication, the lack of coordination between us on pedestrian bicycle trail issues. We certainly, my director meets regularly with the director of transportation in Prince William County. My fellow co-worker, Paolo Belita, is a transportation planner engineer in Prince William County's Department of Transportation, and we coordinate as necessary, as needed, on transportation projects. But that has, to my knowledge, only been roadway projects. I am not aware of any coordination in my 20 years of pedestrian bicycle issues between the county. It's possible that Nicole has worked with Maggie on some of this, and I would certainly commit at this point that to put Nicole, if Nicole is not already in touch with her, to put Nicole in touch with her so that their maps of their aspirational trails that's exactly the kind of stuff that we're doing in the Active Fairfax plan, and we would want to match up. Certainly, there's very few points that actually connect, even though we've got a border that is probably like 20 miles long. Most of it's separated by geographic features. So, working south to north, we've got Route 1, Route 123, the old bridge that Jim talked about in Occoquan, and then you jump all the way to Davis Ford Road, and then you jump all the way to Route 28, or maybe the railroad bridge. Karen's map showed the railroad bridge in the Clifton, then to Route 28, then Ordway, then as far as road connections are concerned, 66, 29, and that's about it. So for two counties that border each other for a good 20, 30 miles, there's really only two handfuls of connections, points that connect, today with infrastructure versus the old Civil War Fords and things like that we used to have that connected us. So of course, from a staff perspective, we absolutely would want our planning documents to match up. And as I said previously, the 66 trail that we're building, Karen's map show I think it's Balls Ford Road in Prince William County that parallels 66 to the south. They've got 66 concessionaire money to widen that road and to add a trail to that road. Yeah, that red line there exactly is just south of 66. That's what would lead to the to Bull Run Regional Park and cross Bull Run there, which would tie in to the 66 trail. So if we are successful in future years of physically making that connection with a real project, it would be coming through Bull Run Regional Park, crossing Bull Run, and then tying into Balls Ford Road there. So again, we certainly, I think this is fair criticism or information about what we should do better, to the point of the Fairfax elected officials educating the Prince William elected officials. That's not for me to touch. Yeah, that sounds like creating a border skirmish. But certainly, it's the kind of thing that if we were to be asked, I'm sure our elected officials would talk to them about that. Again, I'm sure our elected officials are already in communication with the regional jurisdictions when it comes to other transportation elements at larger scale, 66, transit, post-pandemic transportation issues, so on and so forth. So I'm positive that Chairman McKay is already communicating with Prince William County and the other regional jurisdictions on things, but probably not on pedestrian bicycle issues. And so certainly that wouldn't hurt, but that's certainly not something for staff to suggest. That I would suggest that the Prince William Trail advocates need to encourage their elected leadership to have those kind of discussions. But certainly, from a technical point of view, meshing these maps and meshing these efforts could just accidentally create such discussions. So that would be my comments. Beth, do you have other perspectives?
Sure. Just to add on to that, so this is Beth from Park Authority. Like Chris was saying, there are challenges to the connection points. It's not only a river, it's a railroad that you have to get between. And then the other thing is a lot of the coastal area on the Virginia side is not controlled by the Park Authority. It's controlled by the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority. And so coordination between Prince William, Fairfax County, and Nova Parks primarily happens through the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail land managers forums that we have. We have like monthly meetings, bi-monthly meetings, and we check in with each other that way. The other thing, like I said, we've just hired the old Prince William Trails guy. So we will have a person on our staff with intimate knowledge of what was passed or had been worked on with their aspirational trails plan. But we also, what Park Authority does, is especially between the borders of Loudoun County and any other counties we have, is through the land development process. So if we have subdivisions coming in that we know border, we try to look, we get the opportunity called interjurisdictional reviews, where we are able to look at proposals across the way to see how it would impact us. Mainly from transportation standpoint, but we also look at opportunities. So there were some down in Woodbridge. They were doing some long range planning efforts, looking at revisioning down near Woodbridge in the Route 1 area that we made some commentary on, not trails, but water connections, water access connections. So not land trails, but water trails. So we do touch base with them. There are just those challenges where the Park Authority doesn't control a majority of the coastal area. It's the Northern Virginia Regional Park Authority, and then the railroad and the river. So
I think the objective is just I guess aspirationally was what they said it was to just get it, pick the best places that we would like to have connections. Well, what that we talked about was maybe because the focus was on Sully with bridges. They were really but connections that just places that they can put on their plan, that will be final this summer, that their elected officials will approve. So it maybe it's just the ones that you see here, but it was just some feedback. Are these the best locations that they could put on this plan?
yeah, Poplar Ford is definitely one. We have that's on National Park Service land, I believe, and we have land on the other side, which is there are pedestrian trails that link up to that on our master plan for that park. So we do have at least that one that I know of.
And that's the one we discussed the most, and Karen Jones and Bill were really advocating a lot for that one. That was the main one we talked about.
Yeah, and I do believe that one's been we have that on our master plan when and if, things evolve out there. And I do believe it links up to the national parks pedestrian plan that they have for their master plan. So that's at least one we know we have. The other ones, I'm not quite sure, at least what Northern Nova Parks has for their master plans, and they would definitely have to be part of that conversation. So I don't know if Mike Depew is still representing them. I saw on the agenda there's a vacancy or something. So yeah, following up with them would be good.
This is Jim Klein again. The old Yates Ford is another crossing. It connects right up with the Bull Run Aquan Trail. And I guess I would recommend looking at the status of each of those bridges and see which ones are going to be rebuilt and make sure that you have on your map trail crossings and connections so that is addressed when the bridge is rebuilt. That's kind of a basic thing to do, easy thing to do as well to get started. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. Appreciate it. Let me see.
Ken?
Go ahead. Sean.
I actually have something that I would like to bring up to the committee tonight. And I apologize for not getting it out beforehand, but if we have some time, I would like to discuss safe routes to school funding.
We do have time. What we have to do are unresolved issues other that we might want to talk about, but on the agenda. But that's if you've got an urgent issue, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So the issue at hand is that, and I think we've discussed this at the committee before, is that the safe routes to school funding for the coordinator position for non-infrastructure issues is grant funded and is coming to an end at the end of this school year. The Fairfax County School Board is currently having their discussions on the budget, and I'm going to pull something up real quick, so give me just a moment. I apologize. See if this works. There we go. Okay, can you guys see that all right? Can everybody see this presentation?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So I'm going to kind of flip through this fairly quickly. This was a presentation that was also made to the Transportation Advisory Commission in a very similar way, but I've tailored it to our committee now. So basically that the Safe Routes to School has been federally grant funded. Sorry. It's out of the way. There we go. And it has been distributed by VDOT since 2007. However, beginning in 2013, it also funded local coordinators. And those local coordinator was in our case, was doing a great job of ensuring that, I'm going to skip through the background, sorry. What's the goal of Safe Routes to School? The goal is to increase the number of students who take part in safe walking and biking activities at and outside school, right? And what are they doing? They're getting kids physically active, they're reducing congestion at and near the schools, improving air quality, and educating students on pedestrian and bicycle safety. One of the biggest things that they've done is to increase the number of walk to school day and bike to school day events, getting kids out of their cars, out of the kiss and ride line and onto, walking or biking to school at least a couple days a year, preferably, they're working to get them more. And Fairfax County represents a very large portion of that participation in Virginia, which is really great news. And it's really a result of the efforts made by the coordinator, who is a part-time position within FCPS. Again, 29 FCPS schools now have bicycles that they use to teach kids how to ride. In addition, there are 2 traveling fleets of bikes. In the 18 to 19 school year, you can see here 12,000 kids at 38 schools took bike safety lessons, and 12% of those were new to riding entirely. They also do bike swaps, walk to school days, bike rodeos, etc. And basically that this has improved led to a decrease in the number of students taking the kiss and ride to school and increase the number of biking and walking. In addition, there have been traffic gardens put in at a couple of schools. There's one at Holland Meadows Elementary School in the Mount Vernon district. These are fantastic for teaching kids how to safely understand traffic laws using a bicycle in this on this blacktop in a very safe environment. There's another one at Poe Middle School in Mason District. Again, federal grant funds ran out at the end of this school year, and FCPS has not earmarked funding. And if it's funded, their plans are to integrate GIS and transportation planning, eliminate hazard busing, creating after-school bike shop where kids can learn how to repair their bikes, more permanent sets of bikes, and more traffic gardens. Additionally, a pre-K bike pedestrian program with balance bikes, and lessons at 5 elementary schools, campaigns for multiple bike walk school days throughout the year, and project-based learning lessons around pedestrian and bike safety. How can we, the TSB, and the Board of Supervisors help? The school board discussions are happening now. As you can see on this slide, tomorrow, the FCPS budget is planning to be released. We have heard from a couple of the school board reps who are planning to include a motion to propose funding for this, but we want to make sure that we do what we can here, and I would like to ask that we do what we can here in the TSB to urge the county and to ensure that they are working with FCDOT and funding this appropriately. So what am I asking right now? I would like for us to ask the Board of Supervisors to prioritize funding in the upcoming budget. And this is a very short version of the resolution, a letter that I have drafted that I would like to share out and request that we consider signing. And basically, as the Board of Supervisors reviews the FY22 budget, we urge the board to work with FCPS and the FCDOT to begin funding the Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure program, that's the coordinator position, using county funds beginning in the FCPS 2022 to 2023 school year with the FY22 budget. And that's pretty much it for my presentation. Does anyone have any questions before I bring up the letter that we had that I would like to request that we consider sending?
This is Wade Smith. I think it's a really good idea. The situation around some of these schools with parents driving their kids is ridiculous. And I live right by Spring Hill Elementary School, and there's a huge queue of backs out onto Lewinsville Road in the morning and the afternoon. There's also a path behind the school from my neighborhood that, a lot of parents have discovered that path. So instead of sitting in the queue to bring their kids through the regular, whatever it's called, kiss and ride, they drive into our neighborhood and drop their kids off at that path, and it's total chaos back there. And most of the cars are not from our neighborhood. So anything we can do to reduce, parents driving their kids. We had an example at Spring Hill School. A mother drove her kid 100 yards to the school. They lived 100 yards away, and she drove her kid to the school. So anyway, this is a really good idea.
Are you able to see the Word document that I've just pulled up?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, I don't. Hopefully, it's able to be read. But I will of course send this out, or unless we can kind of walk generally through it now, and I apologize. I, of course, did not send this out beforehand, and I am very sorry about that. If we have some time, I think this is a really important issue. And I would love to see if we can approve either this letter or something shortened that the committee feels comfortable sending out, if possible tonight, but I understand if that's not doable.
Well, I would like a chance to look at it. I don't think writing by committee tonight would be a good thing.
I had a feeling that would be the case, yeah. Like I said,
Sean, this is Beth. Just a question. So if they release the budget tomorrow, how do they have a comment period? Do you know how long that comment period might be?
let me go back to that slide. Sorry, give me a moment. So the county executive is going to present the advertised FCPS budget on February 22nd.
So we have a chance to review a letter and send it before the.
And so this is the schedule that I'm looking at right now leads to the school board adopting the budget on February 24th. But I believe that the normal way of things is that once the school board adopts it, then the county board has to approve it. And so since I think our focus is we can only write a letter to the board of supervisors, that still gives us time to do so next month.
So we would be writing the county supervisors, urging them to urge the school board. Are you saying the county would pay for this, or the school board budget would pay for this?
I believe hopefully it will be in the school board budget. We are urging the county to support that addition to the school board budget. And
Yes, the county, that's correct. The county approves the school board budget.
right.
So,
first,
the county would be, if they decided to act on this, would be telling the school board they would look favorably on that entry in their budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Hold on.
Sure.
So no, the county does not approve the school board's budget. The county gives the school board gives us, $3.5 billion, but these are separate governments essentially. And I'm sorry, I've worked for the county for 24 years and I don't understand how Virginia has set this up, but they are literally separate governments, and the board of supervisors does not tell the school board what to do within their budget, but the school board presents a budget request that is, whatever, $3.5 billion, and then it's up to the board of supervisors to say, okay, we have 3.5 billion, we have 3.4 billion, we'll give you 3.6 billion, whatever. Full disclosure, and Sean mentioned that this was there's a parallel effort at the Transportation Advisory Commission on supporting this effort. I was made aware of that. Commissioner Alexis Glenn presented that information to the Transportation Advisory Commission. We're actually going, me and Lauren Delmar are going to the Transportation Advisory, or appearing at the TAC on the 18th or something next week, to have a discussion about this. So the strange thing is this relationship between governments here, that both the TAC and the Trails Committee are advisory committees to the Board of Supervisors. And so your roles are to advise the Board of Supervisors. But the Board of Supervisors themselves do not directly advise the school board on anything, what books to teach the kids, or any other issues. What they do is they have a joint planning meetings throughout the year, and they had one, I guess, in December, where the board, where our county executive presents, this is the budget outlook. This is where we think we are from a budget point of view. They work together on things such as electric school buses, electric Fairfax connector buses. We've come up with economies of scale efficiencies between the two different agencies. We use the same software to do our timesheets, as an example. So there is a precedent for communication. There is a precedent for coordination, but it is not a one-to-one relationship where the Board of Supervisors approves their budget or the Board of Supervisors tells them what should be in their budget. So I think the challenge here is how to craft both the TAC or the Trails Committee's input on this. Clearly, you're certainly allowed to write a letter to the Board of Supervisors, however you want. You might even be entitled to write a letter to the school board, as Beth mentioned, as part of the budget processes, which there's two parallel budget processes. I wouldn't think, I mean, since the school board is essentially an extension of Fairfax County government, I would, my staff professional personal opinion would be that it would be within your purview to write a letter to the school board and you know, make this case. Certainly from a staff perspective, everything Sean said is absolutely true. The coordinator position has a multiplier effect. That's a staff position within the Fairfax County schools that then reaches out to the individual PE teachers or the administration of individual schools, and has just an incredible multiplier effect within schools. We've had these discussions for years on how to improve walking and biking to schools and this whole Safe Routes to School effort. And it's really a two-pronged approach. There needs to be someone within schools to work within the administrative process, the curriculum, and that's what the Sally Smallwood, who's been the existing grant-funded Safe Routes to School person, has done. And then there's the external portion, which is the infrastructure, and that's what we've done. We process the VDOT transportation alternatives process. We build the sidewalks, we build the trails, we do the stuff outside of the schools. Schools, of course, would say that their job is not to fund sidewalks and trails. Their job is to, you know, buy books, teach the kids, so on and so forth. So that two-pronged approach, the county working on infrastructure and schools working internally to their academic constrained system, is absolutely what I would say, in my opinion, is the successful approach. And again, that one position, which was originally lobbied for by our Trails Committee, by Jeff's last name, from Hunter Mill, about 10 years ago now, the Trails Committee took a lead position in challenging some of the policies or informal policies, the urban legend policies within Fairfax County schools, such as principals being able to decide that you're not allowed to ride a bike and stuff like that. And as part of that advocacy that the Trails Committee led and that FAB led, schools got this grant position and eliminated that, you know, these urban legend policies that were anti walking and biking. So there's certainly a precedent for advocacy from FAB and from the committee in this regard. And again, from a staff perspective, I think even, you know, Board of Supervisors, everybody understands that this is the right idea. I think the challenge is, you know, what's the right mechanism? What's you know, how does, if the Board of Supervisors can't tell the school board what to do, you know, of course, how does the Trails Committee tell the school board what to do, so to speak?
I have a question. I guess one way you could do it maybe is that as individual, homeowners and people who reside in the county, if you write a letter, then I guess not as a TSB committee, you could send it as an individual resident of Fairfax County. So you could draft that to, as a Braddock resident and a Lee resident and all that other stuff. I guess the only question I have is is the only correspondence that this committee, I haven't been here long enough, is the only correspondence that we write directed to the Board of Supervisors, or do we ever issue like statements of support for programs that we know works for trails and bikes? So it's not a advice to fund it. It's just, we know this program works and it's a great success and we wholeheartedly support it. Is there anything we do like that, since we work with the Safe Routes to School person as a partner in our objectives?
Yeah, that's a great question. So big picture wise, the staff guidance has been that the TAC and the Trails Committee are what are called boards, authorities, and commissions, and their official role is to advise the Board of Supervisors. In years past, again, 10 years or so past, the Trails Committee wanted to write a letter to the governor. And the answer was no, you're not supposed to write a letter to the governor, because your position could be in contrast or even opposed to the official position of the Board of Supervisors. And we all ultimately report to the Board of Supervisors. And so the guidance at that point, and this is my guidance as staff in consultation with the clerk's office and the county attorney's office, is that the board authorities and commissions role is to advise the Board of Supervisors, and there does need to somewhat be that firewall that you can't have position A and Board of Supervisors have position B. Now, I'm aware of another board authorities and commission that has gone rogue every now and then and done something like that nonetheless. So that being said, I again, if to ask the question, can you write the school board? That's not technically advising the Board of Supervisors, but I would think that would be within the spirit of the charter and the intent of what the Trails Committee is intended for. As you just asked, Beth, a position paper or a position statement, I think could also be appropriate. It's just what would be the mechanism to make that position public. As far as this specific subject, Safe Routes to School, Sally Smallwood has come to the Trails Committee every year as part of her reporting process for this grant that VDOT has funded her position as a way as one of the requirements, a checking the box requirement of that her position is endorsed without an official endorsement of the Trails Committee. So I don't think we've ever officially voted as a Trails Committee that we endorse Sally Smallwood and the grant, but it's part of her local coordination that's required by the grant. And so I think that's my answer. Big picture.
That's
and
my
also,
memory too. That's the way I remember too.
Subject specific.
We did, I think, do something like as a resolution of support or something like that, but we didn't send it to anybody. We just voted it within the committee, and then she could carry that forward, saying, and I received support from a resolution of support from committee that they recognize the value of this position. If the reluctance to have us go outside the Board of Supervisors to the governor is a concern with regards to getting cross-threaded with the priorities and goals and policies of the Board of Supervisors, I would expect the same thing would be true going outside the Board of Supervisors to the school board. The Board of Supervisors might have its set of priorities with regards to what it would want to be sure get maintained within the school budget. we can advise them to include the safe routes to school coordinator, that make that their priority and theirs being the board of supervisors priority, and represent that to the school board. But and of course, a letter like that could be CC'd to the school board with all of the reasoning that's associated with Sean. You'll get the promulgation, but I'm trying to honor the concerns that we are a dependency of the Board of Supervisors. We're their advisors. And all of the reasons why they don't want us, sending letters to the White House and letters to the governor's mansion and that type of thing are apply to even other government entities within the county.
Ken, can I say something? Wade, there is a connection, though, that, as it was pointed out, the Safe Routes to School person has all these things they do, and they also work with the county to correct unsafe routes to school, but the county has to carry them out. So there has to be coordination. So I would think if the letter is written with some sort of language about that, that it is of interest to the Board of Supervisors, because this is important to the citizens who have to walk or bike to school, and the county is responsible for making that happen. So that it is an important aspect that the supervisors have to worry about. It just so happens that this position is not is in the school board budget. But if we make that connection, and and as someone said, we hope that the supervisors will look with favor upon any part of the school budget, if that's included in the school budget, that they think, that they look kindly upon that. But Chris said we can't tell them to put it in the school budget, but there is a connection to the county. The county has to do all the stuff that it takes to make the route safe to go to school. So I think there's a connection, and if we make that connection, writing to the board is not would be fine.
Ken, this is Bob. I have my hand up, but I'm not sure it got noted.
You're right ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good ideas and good information, and I sort of agree with Chris that the board transfers funding to the school board, and it's usually been a battle of the school board asks for the sky and the moon, and the Board of Supervisors says we can have the sky but not the moon, and then the school board has to adjust their budget. But from what I've just heard, I think procedurally, I think the way would be to adhere to the guidance that we have as an advisory commission to the board. If we want to support this with a letter, which the time is very short to even do that, is write the letter along the lines that Sean has outlined. And as you said, courtesy copy to the school board, because at least it'll put it on their radar. The other thing is, though, I really do think it might be more effective to have this go from FAB to the school board. They're certainly entitled to write to whomever they wish. And it's a really good letter from what I saw of it. And also, as Beth said, to have private citizens, even if they're members of this committee, write to their supervisors or their school board, their elected school board members to, support this program. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think we probably do need to observe that sort of firewall that Chris told us about and go to the board and let them work it out through the mechanics of their coordination with the school board, which does go on. But like I say, it's usually a matter of big amounts of money, but not line items in the school board budget, which the Board of Supervisors really has no control over.
Ken Wade Smith again. To wrap this up, maybe if we could get a letter circulated, maybe that makes some of the points we said, that connects it to the board, convinces them this is interest of the board. We could do that, and we meet next month. That's had enough time, because we're not this is not part of the Fairfax County, but school board's budget. We're just, but once they go into, you know, the negotiations with the school board, that doesn't begin for a while. So we have time to vote on this next month.
Okay.
I would like to, so if possible, I would like to make the following motion. I would like to propose that we review a draft letter that will be sent to the Board of Supervisors and will be public and CC'd to the school board, based on the letter that I have shown you briefly that I will send out.
I'll second that, Wade Smith. Let me add, we probably ought to ask Chris and staff to get back to us on the CC. If we CC it and that's okay, we'll do it. But if they say no, we better know that before we CC it. But that's a minor point we can get cleared up.
I'm open to that being clarified by staff.
Oh, this is Jim Klein. Can you read that motion again slowly so I can put it in the notes, please? Thank you.
Got it. So I move that we review a draft letter to the Board of Supervisors, encouraging them to continue funding for a safe routes to school coordinator position. That will be circulated.
Okay, thanks.
And just as
Seconded by Wade Smith.
Yeah, and I would, as to the question about CCing, I mean, I think I'm with Ken on that. That's the that's the appropriate way to do it. There's nothing wrong with, for information, copying the school board that you're advising the Board of Supervisors that this is important. Of course, it depends on how you word the letter. I would think you would want to word the letter to not, you know, direct the Board of Supervisors to direct the school board to do anything, but to emphasize the importance of this position and that it's important to the county and school board's budget in the abstract. But I don't think there's any reason that you would not be it would not be appropriate to CC the school board. And from a timing point of view, since the school board's budget happens in advance of the county's budget, I really think that's your only option to make that point to the school board in a timely manner for their budget process.
This is Wade. Chris, lawyers might get involved if, is that something you just would check quickly with counsel or whomever, just to be sure? We don't want to get our hands.
there is no such thing as checking quickly with counsel.
That's what I was going to say.
Chris made us do it. If they ask us, you know, the devil didn't make us do it. Chris made us do it.
Yeah,
I'll accept responsibility. Thank you.
So this is Jim Klein again. Did you have that CC to the school board in the motion?
Thank you. Yes, I was about to say that I said that the first time and I did not say it the second time. Please add that to the motion.
All right, I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just as a matter of personal preference, does somebody know how I'm going to get a hold of all the email addresses for the school board?
I will get them to you.
Good, thank you.
Wouldn't they?
That's
may have a
really sizable science project.
Would they have a clerk though that could distribute it for us? I mean, you can check that too.
We'll figure out the best way to get it to them.
Well, I would have seconded, but it's already been seconded, so.
Okay, so we batted it around a bit. We can vote on it. Does anybody have any objections to this notion? Motion. Motion passes by acclamation. Any other business?
Ken, Wade Smith.
Go ahead.
Something I just want to bring up briefly, not for tonight, but for thought in the future. The American Legion Bridge Trail is going to be built. Construction is going to start soon on the extending I-95, 495 and into Maryland and all that, with the bridge with the pedestrian trail on the bridge that extends in Virginia almost to Tyson's Corner. It gets as far as Lewinsville Road and County. Chris hadn't figured out how to get it into Tyson's yet, but one of these days. When that happens, when that opens, there are going to be a lot of people streaming on bikes across the bridge into Fairfax County. And a lot of people are going to be looking to do a loop. Right now, if I lived in Maryland, I'd ride out the towpath because it's nice and not uphill. I'd get on the bridge, I cross the bridge, and then from Fairfax County, if I want to get back to the district, it's downhill mostly from that part of Fairfax County. So that's the direction I would go. But once you get to Fairfax County, it's hard right now, given the trails and bike facilities, to get back to Arlington. You virtually can't get to Chain Bridge. So we need to be thinking about what's going to happen when that trail opens and all those folks from Maryland start riding across into Fairfax County. It's a long-term sort of thing, but one of the answers, of course, would be to have a bicycle facility on the GW Parkway. Now, the National Park Service has announced they finally have money to rebuild the parkway, but they're just rebuilding the road, and they're really not going to ride a bicycle on the road, and it's a high-speed highway. You really wouldn't have bike lanes or anything on it. But a few years ago, they did do a study for a bike facility that extended the Mount Vernon Trail to the American Legion Bridge in anticipation of a trail opening across the new bridge. So it's out there and it can be done. The National Park Service was deadly afraid that people would like it and they'd have to come up with money to build it. So they found ways. One of the things they said was, well, we can't build this because it'll give invasive species a way to get into the park. Well, the park is already overrun with invasive species now. So, but in their defense, yeah, they would have to, somebody needs to give them the money to build it. But there is a plan. An EIS was done, everything. So it's not like you'd have to start from scratch. It would be the ideal way to make the loop available and make use of the bridge across the Potomac River that we're going to get. So that's something maybe, I mean, it's a very long term, obviously, type of thing, but we need to be thinking about it, and maybe at some future meeting we can talk about it, maybe review the plan that's out there for the facility to extend the Mount Vernon Trail. We can even ask the National Park Service to come talk to us about it, or, not like next month, but in the future. So I just want to put that on the table. Once that bridge opens, it opens a lot of opportunities for biking. And so it's going to be terrific. I can't wait for it, but it'll be done in 3 years, right, Chris? So it's imminent. Anyway, I just put that on the table for future discussion.
Roger that.
And Chris has figured out a way to get it to the Tyson's Wade, but your McLean Hamlet neighbors may not like my idea of running it behind McLean Hamlet and crossing the Dulles Toll Road over to the Tyson's too.
They have to be on the Beltway side of the sound wall, but
of course
I won't take anybody's time. But if you look at the 2045 plan, they make it impossible to do that.
Ken, this is Jim Klein. I just had a real quick item. Won't take more than a minute. In my 30 odd years, 33 years of working this field, I've never had a chance to say this, so I want to say it now. I want to thank and congratulate VDOT and Fairfax County DOT on a tremendous coordinating effort that was took place on Fort Hunt Road to pave and widen the shoulders a little bit to give more space for bicycling on that route. It's beautiful. They did a tremendous job, and I just want to thank them and may present a letter at our next meeting from this committee if I could to thank them directly.
Great, good idea. Thanks, Jim. I'm gonna have to go try that out. That's good, huh?
It's you can go from Sherwood Hall Road on up Fort Hunt and then down the hill to the Mount Vernon Trail now quite easily and nicely. Did a really great job. So, and it's a very tight fit. So most of the times VDOT will say, well, I can't do that. In this case, every last one of them said, and Fairfax County DOT said, we can do that. You know, I just have not heard that very often. So I'm really excited about it.
Good news.
I have a quick question. Chris, did I see them starting construction on the pedestrian bridge across the Beltway to Tyson's Mall?
Yes. My director has been wondering why we haven't had a groundbreaking. The answer is VDOT doesn't typically do groundbreakings. They typically do ribbon cuttings when projects are finished. But yes, the contract for that was finalized in August, and the construction work started in September. And what I'm hearing from VDOT is they are anticipating it to be quicker than originally anticipated, and that it might or should be completed by this summer. On my to-do list to work out the maintenance agreement, and I've been derelict in not prioritizing that. So if it is actually going to be completed, we need to get the maintenance agreement done. But yes, that work has begun. I personally have not been up Old Meadow since the September timeframe to see any of it, but the reports from local residents back then was that the work had begun. As I've gone down the Beltway since then, I actually haven't even thought to look for anything, but sooner or later we will all see something.
It's the Berlin Wall coming down.
Exactly.
Good job, Chris.
Ken, did you need me to do a quick update on minutes? I know I wasn't here at
Yes,
the
please.
beginning, and I
Yes,
know if we
please.
bumped it to the end. Just a quick update. So we have, for the remaining minutes of 2021, July are done, September are done, and November are done. They will be going out to your inboxes this week. Mark, I have to get with you and send me the notes for December so we can wrap those up. And so hopefully by next month, you will have July, September, November, December 2021, and then hopefully January 2022, which are coming from Jim Klein. So thank you both for volunteering the last 2 months to take your notes for me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'll second that. It's very helpful for Beth and the rest of us to have somebody to take that responsibility for us. Okay. Way past 9 o'clock. It's now 9:05. So motion to adjourn is in order.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
So it is now, like I said, 9:05, and I will see you guys next month. Have a good January.
Thank you.
Night.
Here.